You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
This one is not shocking at all coming from the state of Washington. The Navy SEALs will need to temporarily, based on some court activity, they will need to stop using Washington state parks after local residents voice fears of seeing armed men. Now, granted, these are Navy SEALs training for future encounters. These guys are training towards something that could impact your, freedom? But don't worry, the residents of Washington state, they want their parks, not inhabited by the homeless, and definitely not. They don't want, men in camo skulking around with toy guns. That's literally one of the comments. This is so embarrassing and yet so typically normal for the state of Washington. If you have anything that is, borderline, might make people just a little tiny bit squeamish, whether it's law enforcement or military or any of those things. People here just freak out and go, let's go hug a tree and get rid of these guys because freedom, who needs that? That's overrated anyway. Before we jump on in, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies. And this podcast here, I'm going to read because it's just one of those, all right, this is the state of affairs in Washington state. This is how bad things have gotten. Cause we used to be, loggers and, woodsmen and stuff like that. And now we're like, I don't really want to be bothered when I go to my state park by somebody training to defend our country. I can't have that in my life. I need just peace of mind. And those guys doing training at night when I'm not even here, they really upset me. So those guys have to go. That's literally what we've got going on. Okay. So what the deal is the U.S. Navy is pausing SEAL training at Washington State Park while a legal battle over their use winds its way through the courts. This is Whidbey Island. This is way up to the northwest. It's an island. You can get there by taking a ferry from the city of 𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒕𝒍. You can also get there by going up and around through and going over Deception Pass. You can drive over a big bridgeway, a pass area. This is super cold water. It is freezing cold water, lots of currents, super rocky shore. It's woodsy terrain, a lot of trees. So it's ideal. It's ideal apparently for what the SEALs, training entails. They can't get this kind of training at a lot of other locations because it doesn't have the kind of access that we're talking about. It's difficult to find peace in the woods. This is one of the knucklehead snowflakes here, right? It's difficult to find peace in the woods when armed frogmen might be lurking behind every tree. Lawyers for the Whidbey Environmental Action Network, the group behind the lawsuit against the Washington State Parks and Recreation Commission, they literally argued in court with a legal brief indicating this last month. So, all right. So are there frogmen lurking behind every tree? Nah, they're doing group training. They're in and out of there, and you probably wouldn't even know that they're there, right? So you're not going to have an armed frogman. And if he's armed with a non-operational gun, because they're not using live rounds. That's just not what they're doing here. Their permit is based on that, right? So the Navy has used Washington State coastal parks for over 30 years for SEAL cold water training and other special operation exercises, while leaders saying the area offers the perfect environment to simulate what the elite forces may encounter on difficult operations overseas. These guys are training. It happens to be at a state park. I'm all for that. I don't know. It just doesn't bother me at all. Because you kind of figure, all right, the military knows they're going to stay out of everybody's way. It's not like they're going to march past a bunch of people doing picnicking, with I don't even know what it's called, a squadron or whatever, a group of them training. They're not going to take like 50 of them and just walk right through the middle of the nice people picnicking on a Saturday, right? That's just not happening. And you don't read any situations where that goes on. And you also got to remember, this is Whidbey Island has an Air Force base on it. You got fighter jets flying overhead. Whidbey Island's a cool place, but it's got a military background, right? I mean, it just does. So these people that are whining about this, it's like, do you not realize where you live? Do you kind of not get what's going on? And the fact that they don't really think about what these folks are training for, I don't think they care. I seriously don't think they care. Because if they did, and if they thought it through, how would they get here? I guess they want it not in my backyard. Yeah, my freedom's okay. If another Red Dawn happens, I want it to happen in these knuckleheads' backyard. Have those parachutes just plop right in their backyard. And maybe we should have let the Navy SEALs train more. I don't know. So the Navy has used Washington State coastal parks for 30 years. 30 years, and this is coming up now. Doesn't that just figure? All right, let's take a quick peek. We're going to jump back to this article, but this is some information from an Everett, Washington newspaper, kind of talking about the permit process on this park. So what are they looking at doing? Navy is seeking a permit to conduct special operations training exercises in 28 Washington state parks, despite concerns from park users over the creepiness of the proposal. I'm sorry, is your freedom creepy to you as well? I mean, creepiness. Armed services training. How is that creepy in any sort of way? I don't really get that. But then again, I'm not complaining about this, right? You know what I mean? The Navy plans to conduct 5 types of special operations training in Washington parks, day or night, for up to 5 years, which from what I understand in the research I did, this kind of permit is pretty typical. You pull one, you've got the right to do XYZ. Some of those things that they include: insertion and extraction training, where trainees might approach or depart an area using submersible craft or watercraft. All right. They're coming out or they're going in, beach type deal. Combat swimming or diving and swimming training, where trainees would be confined to the ocean or inland water areas. I can't imagine swimming up there. It's literally, even in the summer, I've gone swimming there in the summer off Whidbey Island. It's freaking cold. You're way north, it's Pacific Ocean. It's not warm at all. And then you got these crazy currents that come in and out. And you've got over the beach training, where trainees would exit the water, cross the beach, and continue to land-based activities. So, and apparently this is great for them. And I would say, hey, if somebody's been granted a permit for this and it all makes sense, it's not like these guys are just running, and gals, let's not be sexist, forget. Although SEALs training, do we have any female SEAL SEALs? I don't know. I seem to remember hearing one that was trying to become a SEAL, but it wasn't going well. She'd not made it a couple of times through the training process. I can't remember. And then we've also got surveillance and reconnaissance operations, where trainees are taught techniques for conducting reconnaissance without alerting anyone to their presence or location. That's the other funny thing about this, that these are SEALs. These are the guys and gals, I think. I don't know. We'll just go with these. The SEALs come and go, and you don't know it, right? That's their thing. So it's not like they are bombarding the shoreline with shells, right? They're not doing that. They're not lurking behind a tree. Hey, let's go see what's in their picnic basket. Like Yogi Bear. They're not doing that. You probably don't even know they're there. Half the time, they're probably training at night. You're not going to be hanging out in the state park at night. And they're definitely not doing any of the training around where people camp. They're just not. So these knuckleheads, they just get it in their idea, oh, I'm a snowflake. I must protect our state from this type of insurrection. I don't know. What do they think? I can't imagine. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by this storyline. This is how badly it's gotten. It's like, okay, so where do you want the military to train? Just somewhere else? And have you ever seen one of these guys actually training? I want to know that. Have you ever seen one of these guys, training exercise? Have you ever seen one? These people doing this? I doubt it. You know what I mean? A state environmental policy act review by Washington State Parks found the request would not have probable significant adverse impact on the park's environment. That's because they leave without a trace. That's what they're trained to do. That's the skill set they're working on. These are not the homeless sleeping in our parks who leave a wild mess array of rotting food, discarded needles, sleeping bags, tents, all that good stuff, where people say, well, you're disrupting their home. Yeah, but the home they left behind clearly is an absolute wreck. So let's be clear. The Navy SEALs are not doing that, and that is by Washington State's Parks' own admission. So they're not damaging the environment, right? They're just doing a little training, and their whole thing is to not get caught because they're kind of in and out. That's the Navy SEALs' job, right? So they'd had a meeting recently on January 28th, and that's where this storyline came out a few days ago. And so it's going to work its way through the court system. I'm just embarrassed. This as a lifelong Washington State resident, this is just embarrassing. I mean, there's no other way to state it. It's like, really? This is what we're doing in our state. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, there's that. There's that. So, what do you even say? So no other region in the continental U.S. provides our naval special worker operators the same atmospheric conditions. It's a special area, So let them do their thing, because that little, that word of freedom, and you might think, well, the military is overreaching. We send them into wars that we shouldn't be doing. All right, yeah, there's that. But how about foreign entity? Like in the video that I watched for one of these storylines, they're talking, if you go right past Washington out to sea and you just keep on going, you'll eventually run into, Russia. And then a little beyond that, you run into China. So if one day, for whatever reason, you get a little, Red Dawn invasion, like we all identify with on the movie. That was an epic movie, by the way. Charlie Sheen, he had some strong work in that. So if one day you have a little, a little drop in from whomever from those particular countries that are literally not that, as far as the rest of the United States goes, Pacific Northwest is about as close as you get to those entities, right? So, and yet we don't want our folks to train there because we don't want to see a guy in camo lurking behind a tree with a toy gun. Yeah. Okay. So although Navy property is large in mass, the facts are training areas are small and limited. They provide little diversity and little complexity. So that's why the Navy for the last 30 years has been training their SEALs in the Pacific Northwest. I take that kind of as a badge of honor. It's like, oh, that's cool. We've got some terrain that is just really, really rough, and they need to use that terrain for getting in and out. Now, has anybody ever been harmed by these exercises? No, because otherwise I'd be reading that story. Has anybody really been emotionally damaged by this? If you're emotionally damaged by seeing the military go through drills, then you do need an enormous box of tissues for all of your issues, because you got a lot. That's just the way I see it. Now, if there was something in between, I would have read it and said, okay, yeah, all right. So we got this going on. It appears that this is maybe a conflict between these two groups. But from what I can see, you just literally got a bunch of snowflakes complaining about, I don't want the Batman in my backyard in the state park. I go there to clear my mind, and I can't do that if the frogman in camo is lurking behind the tree with the fake gun. And I don't even know what to say, right? So, and if the permits are granted, so Navy is looking for a permit to continue, a permit that just recently expired. If the permits are granted, they would also prohibit training near public camping areas or areas where the public often goes at night. Could you imagine? What's that? It's just a platoon of, SEALs walking through the forest. It's like, okay, let's go back to our, stories around the campfire with s'mores. That's not happening, right? I mean, it's the military understands that this probably is not the most conducive activity happening in a state park to PR relations. If you're into that stuff, you'd be like, all right, no, I want to see it. I want to see it happen. But from what I can tell and from the research I did, it's always away from where this stuff goes on. So these people that are worked up about it, I bet you none of them have actually seen this take place, right? There will be parks potentially that are not appropriate at all, and there will be parks where there may be no issues to the Navy's access to them. And I think they make a judgment call and they try not to freak out people because the Navy doesn't need a bunch of people freaking out. We've already got people freaking out as it is over every small little thing. And here in Washington State, we freak out about some ridiculous things, yet we don't seem to get too worked up about our freedom or maybe the lack of police that we have available or things like that, or, our stores getting overrun by shoplifters or handing out free needles to people who, just shoot themselves to kablooey on our sidewalks. And we don't get worked up about that kind of stuff. But, the Navy training to, provide adequate service in what they do, that to me. So here's another comment. There's just a creepiness factor, Dannenberg said. This is Commissioner Sophia Dannenberg from the whatever department. If you've never just seen just people knowing that it's happening, it's making the public uncomfortable. All right, okay. But, when that Red Dawn thing happens, when the parachutes come down in your backyard, maybe you'll be a little uncomfortable then too. And, there won't be any SEALs around because you banned them from training in your backyard. Absolutely crazy. So this kind of thing it's an ongoing story, but usually we don't say anything about it. But right now we're all worked up. We're worked up. Let me see if we've got any other good quotes here, because there's some stuff here that both the Navy's use of Washington shoreline has recently come under fire from local residents who are concerned about both the physiological and environmental impact SEAL training can have on others using the parks. I doubt it. I do not care to catch a glimpse of apparently armed men skulking around, and I definitely do not want to risk having my young grandchildren see such a sight. Grandkids would love it. They'd love it. Who are you kidding? I buy big remote control trucks and cars for they're not my grandkids, but they're my very young nephew, cousins. I got a bunch of cousins that are all younger. One of them's like 16 younger than me, and they're still having kids. And, so I buy them. They always want the big military, whatever it is. No kid ever says, yeah, just give me the little Volkswagen Bug and don't give me that big tank. Don't give me that. I want the tank. Kids love the military, especially boys. Girls, not as much, but I don't get the girl cousins, that kind of stuff. Even though half the time when I see them open it up and the girls are like, oh, kind of wish I had that. I feel bad. Gift giving. So tricky, right? So other residents expressed similar concerns, arguing that the parks are supposed to serve as a place to relax for residents. Yes, but my thought on this being reasonable is that I bet you most people who are relaxing in the parks, they never see a Navy SEAL doing their thing. And that's kind of the whole point, right? That's kind of the whole point. This is not the demolitions division of the Navy SEALs that are blowing stuff up. No, this is not even the Air Force flying their F-whatever overhead, which are incredibly loud. If you've had one, we have the, and they're coming this summer. We have the Navy's Blue Angels, and that's an incredible air show. I mean, the stuff they do, you're like, wow, mind blown. It's pretty cool. But they do these practice runs, and we'll have a Navy F-15, I think it is, fighter jet. I don't know. Come right over the top of the office here, and it'll just roar and shake the building. Because even though they're pretty high up, I mean, it's loud. We're talking Navy SEALs. there's no loud roar overhead. Not happening. That's the Air Force. And we seem to be like, oh, yeah, well, the Air Force, it's okay. I mean, you know, they're providing our freedom. But here's another great comment. In these days of great division in our civil society, yeah, by knuckleheads like you, we don't need stealthy men in camo uniforms toting toy guns around our state and county parks, another commenter said. People frequent parks to escape tension, not to encounter more. Keep the Navy commando training out of our parks. Well, I'm going to say that, you know, kind of like people who want to defund the police, when the bad man comes, you don't get any coverage. Your house? Yeah, go ahead. Take that one. It's fine. Yeah, they don't like commandos. It's okay. You don't have to defend them. Just let it rip. Come on, guys. Come on. Go ahead. Take that house right over there. They didn't like commandos training. So therefore, I think we should have something like that. Let's see. You defunded the police. You wanted to defund the police. So yeah, your 911 privileges. We're going to have to discuss that. We're going to have to reimagine and rethink your ability to call 911. So there's that, right? I think people just, I don't know. What are they even thinking? I know when I saw this, I was like, that's just so damn embarrassing. But, you know, what do you get? I live in Washington State. This is to be expected. Land of snowflake, right? That's just what we're doing. Another commenter expressed concerns over unmanned aerial vehicles, arguing the Navy's plan is to use larger gasoline-powered vehicles as well as small electric-powered types. This offers significant potential for direct and indirect injury to birds. All right. As well as auditory disruption to the experience of park visitors. I don't even know what to say. Injury to birds? These are the same people that are like, yeah, the homeless people in our parks, they're fine. They're okay. They're not hurting anybody. They're not causing any environmental damage. And after every single time we clear out a homeless encampment in a park, hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money goes into cleaning it up. So this whole thing it's shocking to me. And yet, not shocking at all, right? I mean, you're like, okay, that's offensive. I find what you're commenting on the Navy SEAL training offensive. And I'm not a big cop guy. I'm not a big military guy. That's not my thing. I'm not a, wannabe law enforcement agent or a wannabe military guy. But I feel like I know way too much about the whole operations of the police system now, because it's been under such a microscope and such scrutiny that I happen to know, what it takes to bail out of certain circumstances and when you get, when you're eligible for your full retirement and all kinds of this crazy stuff that I shouldn't have to know. Because I shouldn't have to know anything about Navy training, SEAL training, because it shouldn't be an issue. It should just happen. And yet that's not what's happening. You guys need to train in an environment that's like really real, that when you go fight the bad man, you're gonna encounter. No, we can't have that. I mean, you might hurt a bird. You might hurt a seagull. If there was something that was like, okay, you can't fly this particular plane through the area because we've got these migrating, who knows what birds coming through. All right. So don't give them a permit through that time period. But those migratory, they're gone. It's like all the geese are gone from this area. They go south and then they go up to Canada, Canadian geese. They're really annoying. They're loud and they bite people. But we're not even talking about specifics. We're just like, it might hurt a bird. Oh. Yeah. Maybe it'll hurt a spotted owl. Do you remember the spotted owl? Probably not. It was one of the reasons that, we weren't able to cut trees down in logging areas. Spotted owl. The Navy contends that SEAL training in the parks has not interfered with visitors, noting that there is no use of live fire ammunition or explosive devices. But reassurances has not convinced local residents who say the Navy should use the 46 miles of Washington shoreline already under its jurisdiction, an area the Navy said does not offer as much realism to SEALs. Although there are several Navy properties in the area, they do not provide the full range of environments needed for this training to be as realistic as possible. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and this is my personal opinion. If they need to train somewhere, let them train somewhere and figure it out. Maybe there's hours on said training. But these guys are probably still so far off the beaten path and you're not going to see them. So you worrying about seeing them, that's not really an issue. That's not really an issue. And you know what? Your grandkids are going to be okay. Despite having you for a grandfather, your grandkids are probably going to be okay. And if you took them to like the county fair, or you take them to a parade and they actually have like a police car go by and, you know, they actually have a fire truck go by, those kids get pretty excited. Your grandkid's going to be okay, despite you, you know, being their grandfather and popping off with these kind of comments that are just embarrassing. So there we go. There we have it. Yeah, let the SEALs train. Give them a permit, even though it's Washington. Probably won't happen. Probably some crazy entity will step in and go, oh no, this is the issue that we've come up with that really, really steps over the bounds of what we can accept here in the state of Washington. Something like that will happen. Because you're right. I mean, the story is right. Things have become so divided, and this is ridiculous. That's all I can say. It's absurd. But yeah, Washington's kind of absurd at times. Seattle Real Estate Podcast. That's what we're doing. We cover it because a lot of other people are not covering these kinds of topics for obvious reasons. They don't fit the typical narrative, and here we are. But I like talking about them. I think it's important. I think you as the listener or you as the viewer, you think it's important too. So we're going to keep doing it. All right. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. Until then, bye for now.